Welcome to the AEN Stories channel.
I used to think I knew every sound our street could make. The hollow thunk of the mailbox when the carrier's in a hurry. The way the McCulloch's basketball hoop rattles even when no one sinks a shot. The high, lonely bark you could set your watch to. Bandit, the Henderson's escape artist in a golden retriever suit, singing the song of his people at 9:17 p.m. Most nights I'd chuckle, text Mike Henderson and again? And he'd reply with a photo of Bandit flopped upside down on their couch like a burglar who stole a nap. The night everything changed, I was halfway through a rerun of a game I already knew the score to, eating chili I should have retired after a third reheat, when my phone lit up with Mike's name. "You got eyes on Bandit?" he asked, not bothering with hello. There was wind in his speaker, the rush of a man already outside. Gate was latched, I swear. "Liz is freaking." I stood up without thinking. "Haven't seen him," I said, heading for the back door. "I'll check the yard." The porch light caught a scatter of Bandit prints in the soft dirt by our fence, little commas pointing toward freedom. I whistled out of habit even though Bandit mostly responds to snacks and gossip. The night was one of those early spring nights that pretend to be warmer than they are. You could smell wet earth and the ghost of somebody's charcoal from dinner. No Bandit. I grabbed a flashlight and my jacket, told our son Evan I'd be back in a few, and started the familiar circuit. Check under the Henderson's deck. Check the storm drain on Maple because Bandit thinks he's a raccoon. Check the corner by the church where the youth group sometimes forgets to clean up pizza crusts. Nothing but the quiet of a neighborhood that trusts itself. "Try the soccer field," Mike said over the phone. He loves that fence. The field was empty, the chain link silver in the streetlights. I scanned the edges, the thistle patches, the goal netting. The world felt larger than usual, like it had inhaled. When I turned back toward home, my beam caught a flash of something pale, a tail. And then the movement was gone. I listened. There it was, the faint jingle of tags, the sound you notice only after you've lost it for 10 minutes. "Bandit!" I called, and it felt ridiculous and tender at once, the way you use a nickname in public and hope no one's filming. The jingle led me down our street and then away from it, to the little cut-through path that runs behind the subdivision and spills you into a scrubby stretch of county land where teenagers pretend to camp and grown men pretend to be renovating something. I kept going, because that's what you do when you think you're being useful, step into spaces you'd avoid in daylight with a list in your hand. At the end of the path is a gravel lane I've never had reason to take. Tonight, the lane had tire marks like a signature. I followed them because I was halfway a good neighbor and halfway nosy and 100% determined not to report back to Mike with nothing. The gravel gave way to packed dirt and then widened into a clearing that looked like a place where people have secrets. To the left, a stand of pines. To the right, a little cabin I'd never noticed, a leftover from someone's grand plan to retire near a creek. There, beside the cabin, was a car I knew like my own palm. Our Subaru. Olive green with a crease in the rear bumper from the time Olivia misjudged the garage. The vanity plate with the mashup of our initials Evan made fun of. Her tote bag slumped in the back seat like an exhausted passenger. I didn't feel anything at first. That came later, hot and then cold and then both. In the moment, I felt what I feel when my brain solves a math problem it didn't know it was working on. My feet found the ground without telling me. "Olivia?" I said to the air, and Bandit, bless him, wagged at me from under the porch, the end of his tail thumping against the boards like a metronome. I clicked off the flashlight. The cabin had a single light on, low, a glow that wanted to be cozy. The door was closed, the windows mostly curtained. I stood there, a man in a jacket holding a leash, and listened to the two lives I had been living converge. I thought of all the times I'd waved off the mention of this lane because I had a meeting, the way she'd said book club with an extra beat between the words. I wish I could tell you I considered leaving, that I thought about dignity or privacy or the sanctity of walls. I did not. I thought about my wife's car by a cabin in a patch of dark, and the dog that had found it for me, and the son at home doing pre-algebra with his headphones on, and my hand was already on the doorknob. It turned. The door wasn't locked. Inside smelled like kindling and the kind of candles you buy because the jar is pretty. There were boots by the door, not ours. A jacket hung on a peg, a baseball cap tucked into its sleeve. Bandit brushed past me like a tour guide who knew the way. The main room was small and cluttered with the shrapnel of a simple life: mugs, a paperback, a throw blanket that wanted to be in a catalog. Down a short hall, a door was open enough to show light, a strip of something softer. I don't know why I didn't call out. Maybe because I wanted the room to tell me before a person did. I stepped into the doorway and saw what no one wants to see. Two people wrapped in the illusion of privacy, startled into the truth. I backed away before the scene could become detail. The human brain is a camera, whether you ask it to be one or not. The less you let it take, the less you have to carry. I heard my name, the way you hear your name at the DMV when you've tuned out for an hour. Mark, Olivia said, and it was my name, but also not. It was a plea, a protest, a rewind button that didn't work. I went back to the main room because rooms can be kinder than people. Bandit looked up at me with the happy uselessness of a dog who survived another adventure. I put the leash on him, the click loud in the quiet. On the table was a deck of cards and two glasses, the kind with little bubbles in the glass like frozen rain. There was also her phone, face down, and next to it, a key I didn't recognize. I didn't touch either. "Mark," she said again, "closer now. Please." I put my hand up without turning. It wasn't a dramatic gesture. It was an old habit from coaching Evan's rec team when the line got rowdy. "Wait. Stop. Breathe." "Is he armed?" I asked, and surprised myself. The question came from a part of me that had read too many headlines and wanted to be in charge of the next 5 minutes. "What?" "No," she said, the word falling over itself. He's not." "Then he can stay where he is," I said. "I'm going to make a call." "Mark, don't." "It's not the call you think," I said, and found my voice had a calm I respected. I put my phone on speaker and hit Mike Henderson's name. He answered on the second ring, his breath still winded. "Any luck?" he asked. "Liz is about to print missing dog posters on our printer from 2008. "I found him," I said, and the way the sentence left my mouth felt like an offering to a version of myself who still did simple good deeds. "He's with me." "Oh, thank God," Mike said. "Where?" I looked at Olivia, who looked like a person who had been handed a story she wasn't ready to hear. "Off County 12, I said. "Near that old lane by the scrub. Little cabin." There was a pause long enough to be heavy. "The cabin?" Mike said. "The one Lyle's cousin rents to fishermen sometimes? We know that place." "Yeah," I said. "We'll bring Bandit to your place in 10. I hung up. "Why would you do that?" Olivia asked, her voice thin with shock and the kind of fear that confuses itself with anger. "Why involve them?" "Because they called me to look for their dog," I said. "Because I am going to be asked where I found him. Because I am tired of the version of me who says nothing so other people can keep their stories tidy." She made a sound that was half sob, half laugh, the noise people make when the floor gives way and they grab at a curtain. "Mark, I'm sorry." I looked at her then. She was in a sweater I'd never seen before, a color that made her skin look like the inside of a seashell. Her hair was down in that way she used to wear it when we were 20-something and decided midnight was a time to leave the house, not get home. She looked like herself and like a stranger, which is, I guess, what it means to find out you're not the only person in someone's story. Behind her, someone stood in the hall in jeans and bare feet, a silhouette that had the decency not to step farther. "I'm not going to perform," I said. "I'm not going to smash anything. I'm going to take the dog and go home. Tomorrow, I am going to make a list. On it will be your mother and your father, and our son, and a therapist, and a locksmith. I will not guess. You will tell me the nouns and the dates. And then, after we have nouns, we can try verbs. Or we can try silence. Tonight, we are all going to leave this cabin without dying in it." She nodded, because sometimes instructions are a kind of mercy. Can I talk to you tomorrow?" "You can talk to me," I said. "Be at the house at 9. Don't text me. Don't call me. Don't call him." "Okay," she said, and her voice was smaller than I've ever heard it. Bandit tugged toward the door because dogs prefer exits. I led him out into the night that smelled like wet pine and bad decisions. The air hit my face and I realized I was shaking. It wasn't dramatic, just the little tremor you get when you've been holding a box too long and set it down. The Subaru sat where it had sat. I put my palm on the hood without knowing why, the way a person touches a thing to confirm it's real. It was still warm. Mike and Liz were on their porch when I walked up their driveway, Bandit trotting like the hero of a children's book. Liz cried and then pretended not to by squeezing her eyes shut in a way that turns tears into an optical illusion. Mike did a thing I've seen him do after a bad play, look at me, then at the ground, then back, trying to find the right line. "Thank you," he said, and then, quieter, "You good?" "No," I said. "But alive." "Do you need us?" he asked, and the question landed like a blanket thrown at a shivering person. "I need you not to cover for me," I said. "If anyone asks, you can say where I found the dog." I heard how odd that sounded, the dog as alibi and confession at once. "I'm going home. I have a son who is going to ask if I found Bandit and then want a snack." He nodded. "We'll be here," he said. "If you want loud people and bad beer later." "Later," I said. At home, Evan was on the couch with his math book open like a trap. He looked up, hopeful. "Bandit?" "Return to his negligent parents," I said, and he laughed the way kids do when they realize you're making a grown-up joke but it's safe. "Mom texted she might be late," he said. "Said her car was acting weird." "Did she?" I said, setting my keys in the tray by the door because routines keep you from floating. He squinted at me. "You okay?" I thought of all the versions of fine I've seen men sell to their kids. I thought of the list I'd make in the morning. "I'm tired," I said. "You want a sandwich?" He nodded, grateful for the magic trick where food becomes comfort. I made grilled cheese the way my dad taught me, more butter than you think, medium-low heat, patience. We watched the rest of the game in the polite silence you offer a friend who has just been dumped, even if the friend is a team that doesn't know you exist. When he went to bed, he hugged me a beat longer than usual. "Night, Dad," he said into my shirt. Olivia came home an hour later. I heard her keys pause in the lock and knew I wasn't the only one performing normal. She walked into the kitchen like it might arrest her. We didn't say anything. We didn't need to. She went upstairs and took a very quiet shower and then went into the guest room without a sound. I went to the couch because the couch felt like a place where decisions didn't get made. Morning was cruelly bright, the way mornings are when the night has been a different species of day. I made coffee and printed a blank calendar page because paper makes me braver. I wrote, in block letters, Monday 9 a.m. Fax. Under it, family counselor, lawyer consult, lock change, tell Evan. Under that, Henderson's, thank you. At 9, Olivia sat at the table with a notebook and her phone, her eyes red but not performative. "Do you want me to go first?" she asked. "I want nouns and dates," I said. "No adjectives." She told me. It was legs around the truth, ugly and clinical and wrenching in its ordinariness. Someone from a work committee. A drink after a meeting that made her feel seen. 2 deceptions that became a habit. The cabin belonged to his brother. It had happened there 3 times. Once at a motel off the interstate that she hated and I didn't need to hear she hated. She ended it 6 weeks ago. He had taken longer to comply with the ending than she would admit. They had not used our house when Evan was home. The night before was supposed to be a closure conversation. She hated that phrase the second it left her mouth. I wrote the names and the dates in a neat list because I am not a man who relies on recollection in a storm. "No contact," I said, and she nodded. "If he contacts you, you show me." "I will," she said. "Your parents at noon," I added. "Evan after school. He gets the least dramatic version." She cried then, a crack, a leak, not a performance. "Okay," she said, and I believe she was agreeing to the verbs, not just the nouns. Her parents came with the speed of people who do not trust texting for bad news. Her mother tried to hug me, I let her, because depriving someone of what they think is comfort is a cruelty I didn't have the stomach for. Her father shook my hand too hard and said, "We'll do whatever you need," the way men offer to move furniture when your heart is broken. "Be quiet where you should be," I said. "Loud where I ask." We told Evan after homework. He sat at the table with his pencil still in his hand and his face turned 16 in a second. I didn't say the words I'd been rehearsing in the car, I said different ones that arrived looking more like me. "Your mom and I crossed a line," I said. "We're going to counseling. She's going to stay in the guest room for a while. You do not have to fix anything." He nodded once, stared at the table, then at me. "Is it my fault if I don't want to hear anything else?" "It's your right," I said. "If you have a question next week, next month, you can ask. But we won't fill your head with adult stuff to make ourselves feel better. That's what grown people do when they're selfish." His eyes moved to Olivia. "Are you sorry?" he asked, and the room was a courtroom for a moment, a small, sacred one. "Yes," she said. "More than I've been sorry for anything in my life." He nodded again and looked at me, then back at his pencil, then at the refrigerator where science project rubric is held by a magnet that says keep going. "I have practice tomorrow," he said, and the world reassembled itself around a calendar. We found a counselor with Tuesday openings. The office had a ficus that didn't look fake and tissues that did. We sat on a couch and told a stranger the parts of our story that fit in 50 minutes. He said words like remorse and repair and routine. He told us to put our phones in a bowl at dinner and to stop using always like it was a weapon. He said, "Trust isn't a feeling, it's a practice," and I rolled my eyes and wrote it down anyway, because even cliches can be scaffolding. Neighbors did neighborly things. The Hendersons brought brownies and didn't linger. Mike texted me a photo of Bandit asleep in the laundry basket with the caption, "He promises to retire from detective work." I sent back a thumbs up and then typed, "Thank you for calling me." He typed, "Always, man," and I felt the small relief of a two-word bridge. I'd like to tell you I had an epiphany and forgave and forgot and we love each other better than before. That makes good TV. What I have is a stack of Thursdays with counseling, a locksmith who gave me a military discount because he liked my old baseball cap, a son who asks me to rinse his cleats in the yard and then looks at me to see if I'll say yes like normal. What I have is a line on the calendar for family dinner on Sundays, no phones, no refereeing, tacos again because apparently that's how grief reconstitutes itself. A week after the cabin, I took Bandit a bag of the fancy treats Liz buys when she's feeling guilty. He barreled into me like a runaway pillow, then sat with all the seriousness of a retriever waiting for a dead talk. "You found me," I told him, scratching the soft place behind his ears. "You were supposed to be the problem, and you led me to the answer." Mike laughed from the porch. "He's a menace," he said. "He's a messenger," I said, and it wasn't a joke, not really. Some nights I still drive past the gravel lane. Not to haunt myself, not to test anything. Just to remind my body where it learned something it didn't want to. The cabin light is off when I go by. The pines are just pines again. The world is full of these places, unremarkable until they aren't, then back to unremarkable after they've finished ripping something open for you. If you're looking for a moral, I can offer you a list. It's what I do now, make lists not because they fix things, but because they make a map on days when you forget your own street. Dogs will tell the truth before people do. Pay attention to the leash. If you're going to open a door, decide who you want to be before the knob turns. Don't hand your pain to your kid and call it honesty. Give them a schedule and a sandwich. Neighbors are a kind of family that knows when to be loud and when to be quiet. "I'm sorry" is the start of a sentence, not the end. Trust isn't what you feel. It's the thing you do every boring day until your hands remember how. Last night, Evan asked if Bandit could sleep over for a movie night because science says borrowed dogs improve outcomes. The Hendersons agreed with the enthusiasm of people who forgot what it's like to have a retriever in your bed. Bandit snored so loud the couch vibrated. Evan said goodnight from his room and I sat there in the flicker of a dumb action movie and listened to the snore in the house in my own breath, and I thought, I am not okay, and I am not undone, and sometimes that's the victory. Olivia texts me photos of dinner from the guest room like a lab report, pasta, salad, proof of life. We talk without adjectives most days. We sit at counseling and work on verbs. On Wednesdays, she picks up Evan from practice and I let myself not ask 1,000 questions because a brain needs to be your ally sometimes. On Saturdays, I mow the lawn and wave at Mike and Liz and Bandit on their porch, and it feels like the kind of normal you grow instead of inherit. The cabin is still there. The lane still turns off where it turns off. Bandit still tries to run. But the night air smells like cut grass again, and the mailbox still thunks, and sometimes Evan forgets to roll his eyes at my jokes. The world keeps making its small, loyal noises, and I keep listening, because listening is what I have to offer. And on good nights, it's enough. Thank you for listening my story. If you want more raw, real, and gripping stories like this one, subscribe to the AEN Stories channel. Your support keeps these stories alive.